even if I were explaining working with parts, if I were explaining emotional age, if I were explaining the empowerment spectrum, if I were any of the work that I do or that you're doing now, if I were to still had to come up with something quick, I would say we were all born golden. Every human being is born beautiful, golden child. We were all born. You were born a little girl, you were golden. And maybe your family didn't know it because maybe nobody taught them that they were golden. So they had no clue they were giving birth to a golden girl. And so they never treated you like you were golden. And maybe you went to school, or maybe you were in a community and none of your friends knew they were golden. And maybe their parents didn't know anything about this goldenness. So no one actually impressed upon you, like, you're really golden. So you made a decision as a little girl. It's not safe. That's the simplest way to think it. The brain will always do what is the most safe, not the most fun. The brain will never do what it thinks will give you the most joy or happiness. What it will do is it will impress upon you not to make any choices or do anything that in your brain's mind doesn't seem safe. Now, some of you might say, I've made the most terrible decisions. That doesn't make sense to me. So we're going to dive into, like, why would you make a bad decision when you think that your brain only wants you to be safe? Because it's, what does safety mean to your brain? Safety might mean love is very dangerous, even though love is what you say you want. Your brain might say, I've never seen love as being something that's safe, so wreck every relationship you're in. Or choose men who will, or women, I don't mean to say men, choose partners who will screw you over because love isn't safe. So you might say, why would I make these bad decisions? Well, because somewhere in your brain, you made a whole slew of decisions about what would, Teresa, it's so good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. It's about what would be the smartest way of moving forward. So when you were a little girl, you made a really smart decision at the time: cover my gold up, put my gold somewhere safe until I grow up and I get out of this family, or I get out of this community, or I get out of this religion, or I get out of this abuse, or I get out of this way of being told how to be, or I get out of patriarchy, which we're now finally smash the patriarchy. But for whatever reason, at some point you were a little girl and your brain said, you know, when you do that, you know, that thing you do, you know, when you sing, when you dance, or when you play, or when you're loud, or when you're bold, or when you're whatever it is that is your gold, someone might steal it. It's not safe in this environment right now to be your greatest self, your golden self, your best self. So tuck her away until you grow up and you're a woman, and then you can pull her back out and go out there in the world and be your great self. So the clay Buddha is this perfect story. I would stand on a stage and I would say it this simple. I would say, there's this story that's true. In 1957, this is how much I master these, and we're not the storytelling yet, but I'm just remembering. 1957, they were moving this huge statue of a clay Buddha, a clay statue. It doesn't really matter. The Buddha part is irrelevant. They're moving this clay statue, and in the midst of moving it, it fell to the ground and it broke. And they were horrified because they thought they had destroyed this really important statue. And underneath it, they discovered gold. And it is now deemed the most valuable statue in the world. And the story goes that hundreds of years ago, the army was coming in to Thailand at the time, and the monks decided to cover the gold with clay to keep it safe so it wouldn't be stolen. It worked, but all the monks were slaughtered. The story could never be passed on until that statue was finally safe enough. We don't chip off our clay until we feel safe enough. So one of the things I want to talk about today is, why don't we do what we say we want to do? Why don't we do it? Let's say we've done all this work where we've gotten up now, we're through the muck, we're through the fear, we're into desire. We said, I want to do this and I want to do that. I love to create. I'd love to look like this. I'd love to do that. I'd love to travel there. I'd love to fall in love. I'd love to have a baby. I'd love to take a course, write a book, get my PhD. I'd love to lose 40 pounds. I'd love to, all the different things that we have a whole list of things we say we'd love to do. That's desire. So then what's the energy that's just above desire? Anger. So here's where women, this is where it's really an area that I've said it over and over and over, we are the most, generally speaking, uncomfortable with the space, the energy, the emotions of anger and pride. We've almost been taught like pride comes before the fall. Haven't we all heard that saying? Like pride comes before the fall. Like once you start feeling really good about yourself, the other shoe's going to drop. What goes up must come down. We've all been taught these different stories. So if you're not doing what you say you want to do, it doesn't even matter how angry you get at yourself, how entitled you think you are, how amazing you actually think. I am freaking amazing. I could do it. Why am I? And then you say, what would courage have me do? And courage says, I would start getting up every morning at 5 a.m. I don't know why that would be courageous, but for some people I say, I'm gonna start setting my alarm at 5 a.m. I'm gonna go for an hour-long walk every morning. I'm gonna come in and have an Epsom salt bath. I'm gonna give myself self-care. I'm gonna meditate before I start work in the morning. I'm gonna start my day, just that simple thing. Why am I not doing it? I know that this would make me feel amazing. Why won't I do it? So here's where the little shift comes in. And this is what I wanted to talk about today before we get too deep into working with parts. Because just above courage, there's another space that we women want to avoid. And it's called neutrality. In fact, think about some of the great advocates. I was just talking with a client about this. We were talking about like how so many of us are just, we almost think of neutrality as passive. I don't want to be passive. If you don't have an opinion, if you're not making a choice or decision, like haven't we all been taught sort of that if you're not on the side of the victim, you're on the side of the oppressor. How can you just be neutral? How can that be empowered? How can being neutral be on the way to empowerment? You say you want something, you're angry that you're not getting it, you deserve it, you have pride and dignity, damn straight, I'm doing what I need to do, I'm putting the work in, I deserve to have this. What would courage have me do? Courage is going to help me take the next step to go. And then all of a sudden you're told, guess what now though? You have to detach completely from outcome. How hard is that to hear? Okay, so now you've been angry, you've had pride and dignity, you have the courage, you say, what would courage have me do? Courage is going to have me, but then you say, I don't understand, why am I not doing it? You have an opportunity right in this space to either sit in this, and we're going to do a process. I'm going to give it to you right now, or fall back down into being angry at myself, angry that I'm not doing it, feeling insecure again, wanting what I want. Then I get angry again. I have pride and dignity. What would courage have me do? But why am I not doing it? I know what pride would have me do. I know what courage would have me do. I'm angry enough that I want to do it. I really, really, really want to do it. Why am I not doing it? So the land just above courage, below willingness, and believe me, I've tried to bypass this emotion all my life, which is where there's a will, there's a way. I just want to go from courage. What would courage have you do? Well, where there's a will, there's a way. Willingness is just above neutral. So now I want you to imagine that there's this little land, and you're going to have to even do this with your clients, because here it is where all of a sudden she's either completely made peace with, I don't care what anyone thinks. I'm not going to give any love to this. I'm not going to give any hate to this. I'm not going to give fear to this. I'm not going to give acceptance to this. I'm unplugging.